Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ministry Mondays with Meg. I'm Meg. I am Reverend Meg Biddle. I currently serve as the National Coordinator of Ministry Life here at ABHMS, the American Baptist Home Mission Societies. Um, and I am thrilled today to have as my guest uh, Reverend Travis Norvell, who is author of, for those watching us, I'm holding up the fabulous book, author of Church on the Move, and also happens to be the pastor at Judson Memorial Baptist Church in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Travis, thanks so much for finding the time and getting your technology working today
Yeah.
to join. I appreciate you very much. So for those who don't know you, one, where have they been? And two, could you could you tell everybody a little bit about you, where you serve, that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks, Meg, for making time and for the invite.
Yeah.
Great to be on here, and thanks for all the work you do at ABHMS and otherwise. Yeah, so I'm the pastor at Judson Memorial Baptist Church. It's it's an ABC neighborhood church in South Minneapolis. I've been here 10 plus years. I'm a dad. I got 3 kids. The oldest, 2 oldest are in college at St. Olaf, and I got one who's a junior in high school. My lovely wife, she is a member of the Minneapolis School Board. So please don't direct any questions or anything about school board stuff because I can't do that. And
Right.
yeah, I've been a pastor for 23 years and I love doing it and just glad to be here with you for this morning. How about that? I mean,
That works. That
okay.
works.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just have to say this. St. Olaf, Minnesota is really a real place.
No, you mean you're talking about like Golden Girls.
Yeah.
St. Olaf, the college is a real place. St. Olaf as a town is a fictional
Hmm.
Betty White creation. But but they're great. If you go to YouTube and watch the
Yeah.
greatest clips of St. Olaf with Betty White, they're really
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because I was like, wait a second. I
Yeah.
love me some Golden Girls.
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So there's my first question out of the way. So you've been there for 10 years. They haven't kicked you out yet.
Not. Yes.
Right, which is sometimes it's amazing in and of itself that they
Yeah.
let
No, it is.
us keep doing these things. Um, so you wrote your book, Church on the Move,
I got a
and
copy right here. Yeah.
right, well, and I'm assuming, since you wrote it, you've read it, that kind of stuff. Um,
Who would
so you
hope?
wrote it in 2022, right? Or you were published in 2022.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
no, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I started it before the pandemic, and then I got in kind of a down spot, and I didn't really write anything, and I thought, well, this is just going to be a waste of time because is there even going to be a church to come back to after the pandemic? And then a friend of mine just said, hey, you're never going to have this opportunity again in life, so just put your head down and do it. And I'm glad he said that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Mhm.
And I'm really glad you wrote it actually.
Well, thanks.
It's if for those who have not purchased it, I will just say it is available at judsonpress.com, folks. www.judsonpress.com. Go and buy it because it's actually, I mean, they didn't pay me to say this, but it is worth the read. Um, so
Yeah.
do you want to? Why? What's your why? Why did you decide? Oh, okay, I'm going to write this book.
Yeah. Well, it came out of, first of all, let me tell you the origin story of how things
Sure.
happen. So I've always loved riding bikes. I've always loved taking a bus. I've always loved walking. Those 3 things are part of who I am. And I've tried it in different ministry settings, and at each time it never really worked, for a variety of reasons. And when I came to Minneapolis, I didn't plan on it. I had this wonderful Volkswagen Jetta that I bought used in New Orleans. I come to find out later that it was, flooded during Katrina and had all these, technical problems, but I didn't know that at the time. And it just kept breaking down. And so finally the heater went kaput, in January during the middle of what they call a polar vortex here. And I just said, I'm done. I'm finished. I can't do it. I can't put any more money into this car. So I decided to sell it. At the same time, I mean, it's hard to go back and at the timeline, but it's like the same weekend. I was preaching just a regular, what I would consider, kind of a run of the mill social justice sermon. And I asked a simple question to the congregation: what are you willing to sacrifice so that others may experience joy? And that night, my daughter, who was at the time, she was at 11, Seneca, she's the one who's a senior now at St. Olaf. Um, she said, Dad, I tell her good night. Dad, what I was listening to, thinking about your sermon, and I just wonder, what are you willing to sacrifice so that others may experience joy? And that just floored me. And as a dad, I felt like a complete phony. All talk, no action, all those things. So that night, I just turned our kitchen table into a kind of a makeshift midlife crisis center, and I started figuring out, could I walk, bike, and take public transit as a pastor? And I thought, okay, I can do it. And I really stumbled my way through, and and it just worked. Things just started happening, and it really kind of revolutionized the way that I saw pastoral ministry. And so when I came, after a few years of doing that, I would talk to people, and they would just kind of look at me when I would tell them what I was up to, and they would say things like, "Well, that may be good for you in Minneapolis, but it won't. I can't do it where in the middle of Kansas or in northern Wisconsin or something like that." And I was like, "No, you really can." So here, let me show you some stories or ways that maybe you can adjust for your own self. And that's kind of the why. I was trying to show other people that there's a way to do this.
Well, I mean, like kids, right? Because
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, wow. I mean, the kid calling Seneca calling herself I mean, how God uses our kids sometimes to just
Yeah.
go, oh,
Well, who said kids don't pay attention to sermons? Yeah. So
right. I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
so when I was when I was a pastor, if I used my kids in a sermon and they caught it, I paid them $1, and that's the only reason they paid attention. Um, but they'd go, "That would be 2, please, mom," right? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
occasionally, they were sitting at the back and they'd go, like, "What? Yeah, gotcha." But to know that that Seneca's listening and goes, "Wow." I mean, how could you not sit down and have a battleship plant and kind of
Yeah.
map
No,
out
really.
okay, so I've completely screwed up my life and my kids. All right, God, what do you want? I mean, really? Oh, wow. And so what now I don't math. So you're over 10 years into the experiment? Is that right?
Yeah. This is the 10th year of the experiment. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It continues.
Wow.
Mhm.
Um, and have you ever, like in those 10 years, worried about your own safety? Like, I'm gonna get hit by a car. I'm gonna get run over by a bus. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, all the time. All the time. Every day there's some kind of liminal moment of fragility that I experience. But I mean, I experience that. I mean, it's the same chances you're taking, whether
yeah,
you're in an automobile or not, and especially with distracted drivers,
yeah.
um, and kind of like a basic kind of, I don't know, unlawfulness, with driving,
Yeah.
attention. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I feel every day that's what happens. Yeah.
Did your family think you were nuts when you're like,
Oh,
"Okay, I've gotta sell the car." We live in Minnesota where, what did you say, like 6 months out of the year you have winter?
yes, yes, and and they probably still think I'm a little, off, but that's other reasons. Yeah. When I first announced that I was gonna do this, their reaction was just abject horror, like their mouths dropped, they were just and so I was like, "Oh, hold on here. No, this is my experiment, not yours. We're gonna keep the van." Um, so and then they all kind of breathed a sigh of relief, and we're like, "Okay, this is just Dad's thing that he's doing," and that gave them some assurance. But what happened though after? I never pressed them on it. I never said, "Hey, this is what you need to do." But just kind of naturally, maybe through osmosis, maybe just through watching me and hearing my stories, they started doing it too. So, I have kids. They are my youngest is 16, going on 17. Even though we kind of whenever we do that, we still do sing a little Sound of Music
Mm.
songs. Kind of hard not to, and my other two, Seneca's 22, Glenn's 20. None of them have their driver's license. Uh,
Really?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, wow.
we made a deal with them that I presented them a deal. I said, we only have one car and it's a van. So, the abilities for them to take the van and do thing with their friends was kind of like off the table just because, you know, Lori and I have to drive sometimes for work and there's all these errands we have to do. So I said, okay, here's the deal. What is it going to take? What is it going to cost for insurance to put you on our insurance plan when you turn 16? And they, we called the insurance company up. They gave us the number. I said, okay, look, rather than do that, we can put you on the insurance and it's going to cost us X amount of dollars. The other thing I will do is, or you can, we'll give you that money in cash and we'll get you a new bike and we will, you'll have a full bus card that you can use for your travels. And all three of them took the deal. So it's been kind of I mean, for us, like we don't have to worry about, transiting kids all over the place. And it's been a huge money saver too. So, yeah, I was surprised that they all took it, but if you can get a kid, it's that 15 to 17-year-old gap. If you can get them thinking differently about transit, then you've got them, they can think differently all the time.
With this might not necessarily work everywhere, though.
Correct. It doesn't work everywhere. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a town with no stoplight, and so, they still don't have a stoplight. And so going to the grocery store means, I'm just like, ooh, still have one that's my youngest is 13. Can I make the same deal here? Possibly.
Yeah.
But where I grew up, no, that's not gonna work.
Mhm.
Wow. Yeah. I'm really impressed that they took that deal.
I am too. I didn't think they would, but yeah.
I mean, so assuming kids went to prom, did their prom dates pick them up? Is that what I mean, because I'm like,
Yeah,
"Ooh,
I
wait,
mean, still like Lori and I would
to
show
prom?"
kids around. I mean, sure,
Yeah.
there's those kind of things, but like right now when our kids come home from on college breaks and they want to go see their friends over at the University of Minnesota, they ride or they take the bus. They know how to do it. The biggest benefit was when Seneca went for study abroad programs. She went to France for a couple weeks by herself before the class met in Italy. And I got this, great proud moment when she called me up or just texted me, "Hey, Dad, because you showed me how buses work and light rail work and trains and bike share programs, it was just so much easier to get around that she was able to do. So that was kind of a nice thing.
Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
"All right, this is all
Yeah.
different. This is all been." How long did it take you to get to the point where you're like, "Okay, what I'm doing is worth the sacrifice?"
Oh, that was probably within about 6 months when
6
I started, and
Okay.
that was because I think like a Protestant liberal like myself, we talk a lot about social justice and all these things, but if I started doing an audit of my time, I rarely spend a lot of time with the working poor or with people who with their backs against the walls, those kind of folks. And so, but when I was riding my bike or I'm on the bus or I'm walking, I'm with them all the time. And I just kept hearing story after story of people that were, recent immigrants or refugees that are in the country here in Minneapolis, trying to navigate a transit system, trying to start their life over. People from refugee camps talking to me about what life was like there and what life's like here. You hear all those stories. Or, how many times when I grew up did I hear in church, the poor were lazy
Mm,
from sermons,
yeah.
and I would be out there at the bus stop with somebody who's working 3 jobs and is, walking a mile to the bus stop and then walking a mile back and just working their tail off. And I'm like, you know, all these, categories and, ways people are labeled, they just continually got shedded and reframed. And so for me, it was just a wow, a lot of wow moments, lots of changes. And then, yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, though, that it only took 6 months for you to go look at the world, that it changed the way you viewed the world. I mean, really.
No, it did. Yeah. Yeah. And then started impacting like the way that you think about ministry. Um, it started kind of localizing it more. The church kind of had this idea that it was a destination church, pulled from a wide variety. And there are people that pull from a wide variety of, from the metro area. but our primary focus is really, within a 3-mile radius of the church.
Mhm.
About 75% of the congregation lives there. And for us, it was okay. When you think about what is your mission, it's really hard to think about an 8-county metro area. Like how are you going to make an impact in that large of a space? But for us, every time I just kept riding my bike, the stories, or on the bus or walking, the stories kept getting more local, and that really focused kind of our ministry and our approach to the neighborhood and the relationships that we needed to start establishing. And for us, tragically, it came to fruition really, in the murder of George Floyd. Afterward, the city was really the city was burning. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of righteous anger, and people in a lot of pain. Because we were so kind of hyper focused on a local scene, that we had relationships with a lot of other nonprofits and social agencies that we knew exactly where to direct resources. And people just wanted to, people flooded the church with money from all over the nation, and we were able to, every dollar that came in went out within like 24 hours was our
Wow,
goal. Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
Wow. So has this bicycling ministry, being the pedaling pastor, has this actually like given you more? Have you found that it gives you more liberty?
Yeah. Well, strangely enough, I don't know if you've read the book, Saving Us by Catherine Hayhoe. It's, she's a climatologist, and she had this one little line in there that said something about, um, what you're trying to make a positive impact in life. It's easy to focus on the negatives, but can you focus on one positive alternative that maybe you can get people to think better about climate science? That was her kind of goal, but really it applies to anything. And so one day I'm sitting there listening to Minnesota Public Radio in the mornings, and Kathy Werzer, who's the local radio personality, is talking about a car fire on 35E, or a semi truck that jackknifed, and this was in the middle of winter. And so I asked her, I just sent her a text, and I was like, "Hey, Kathy, would you be willing to give morning bicycle commute reports if I submit them to you?" And she said, "Sure." And she thought it was a lark, and thought it'd be goofy. And then it just kind of blossomed into this thing that every morning for a couple of years. I didn't, kind of tailed off a little bit this year just because of time commitments. But I gave morning bicycle commute reports for in the winter, and the pedaling pastor became this little goofy name. But the liberty, it got us into doors.
Mhm.
It greased kind of conversations. And so it gave me while I was on the bike. I'm still the only person I know of in Twin Cities that has a clergy, kind of a little bike, like a bike license plate that says clergy on it. So people kind of know me in that. So I mean, the liberty you get with it is, it's quite fascinating. Just the way that
Yeah.
it opens doors. And yeah.
And I'm gonna give this a shot for those listening. So I'm gonna try to share my screen without dun 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 without sharing like everything on Facebook. So there's the
Oh,
bicycle,
yeah.
hopefully, with the fancy dancy clergy uh license plate, so to speak, on the front. And there's also an award that is on that bicycle. You wanna mention what that
Yeah.
award?
Yeah. Heck yeah, I do. So Colgate Rochester Crozer Divinity School, my alma mater, they had two new awards for alumni this year. There's always a distinguished alumnus that they give out, but this year it was the Emerging Leaders Award. But as you can tell, I don't have enough hair to be in the Emerging Leaders Award category. And there was the Peace, Service, and Justice Award. So I was awarded that. So it was I felt like the dad off of A Christmas Story. Like
Oh, right.
I won a major award. I don't know if it was a deed to a bowling alley or this plaque, but it was pretty cool.
Right, I mean, that is pretty cool,
Yeah.
and congratulations,
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
on that. I mean, it is it is a big deal. I found it really interesting, when you're talking about, the climatology stuff
Mhm.
in your book, where you're talking about, like, 53% of our trips are
Yeah.
less than 3 miles
Mhm.
in the US, and what was it, 44% were less than 2, and 30% are less than 1. I mean, and when you think of it that way, if you do live in a major area, yeah, bicycling really does make sense. If, and and how much of a difference could we make if we were willing to alter our lives, be a little inconvenienced, and pedal places instead of drive our cars.
Well,
So
it's also about, like, trying to form community.
yeah,
So if you live in a place where you can't, if I mean, I lived in a town that never had a sidewalk. I mean, you couldn't walk anywhere.
oh,
You could walk on the road, but that wasn't very safe. You could bike, but that wasn't very safe either. And the bus only went, once an hour. Um, but in places like that, could you at least try to? Could churches be little centers where people think, okay, can we tithe some of our trips? Can 10% of our trips be commutes? I mean, not commutes, but carpool. Like, we're going to go to the grocery store together. We're going to go do visits together. I mean, just trying to think creatively about that, because we are so isolated. I mean, loneliness is something that maybe the biggest pandemic right now, other far as causes of health declines. So how can churches be a way that we can try to combat loneliness a little bit? And maybe just, I mean, you're riding in a car with somebody, or you're walking with somebody, or you're riding a bike. I mean, there is that idea that you are parallel to each other. You're not looking each other in the eye. There is kind of a safety thing there about what you share with someone. And I think there's that kind of speed of trust is something that we could really focus on.
what's also an excellent book, The Speed of Trust.
Yeah,
Just
exactly. Isn't it though?
it's
Yeah,
an
yeah,
excellent
yeah.
book. I'll, I'll, uh, I'll, I'm gonna put a link to the Saving Us, and I'll also put the Speed of Trust out there for people who haven't read it. It is excellent. And I highly recommend that one too. Um, books. That's what that's
That's
what
what we
we
do. Yeah.
do is an occupational hazard. Um, I mean, I think what is great about your book is the opportunity that you present. You know, the question that what happens when you embrace risk, right? I mean, what happens when you take a chance? What happens when it could have failed, but look, it didn't. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and you're never gonna know if you don't try. So, I think that's what I appreciate most. I mean, yeah, you have handy dandy recipes and everything in there, but I think at least for me, my takeaway was that question of what happens when you embrace risk, and your question about finding your joy. Well, that's what this whole podcast web show thing is about for me is finding joy. So I appreciate how it all comes together like that.
And think about the risk we're both having right now in the conversation. So, I mean, we're embracing that. We're kind of leaning in with curiosity, and I mean, I think good things happen when you lean in with curiosity, when you try to embrace risk, and where you at least kind of put yourself not. I mean, you don't want to be in like totally vulnerable spots your whole life. You can't do that all day. But there are some places that are safe places to be vulnerable, and a conversation is one of those places. And yeah, it can go in a really bad place, but it can also go in a really beautiful place.
I also appreciate that you're an American Baptist pastor and you have a picture of Pope on the wall behind you.
Well, so Papa Francesco, right? So
Yeah,
uh,
I'm a fan. I
I
mean,
do, right? But I mean, look, there's lots of things I don't like about the Pope, obviously. I mean, American Baptist. So,
right.
but I was at the Catholic bookstore picking up some candles and for church, and they had this picture there that was 49 cents because the corner was torn. And I thought, I'm just gonna put it on the wall and see what happens. And
And look at it now. I
no,
mean,
exactly.
look,
Yeah.
no, it's
I mean,
great.
I'm really, yeah. I mean, I'm really inspired by Pope Francis in a lot of ways, and one of those. I mean, there's a great little kids book called Pope Francis Takes the Bus, and it's all these little stories about him, uh, when he was in Buenos Aires and other places, just taking the bus on a daily, uh, for his daily kind of pastoral ministries, even as he was, archbishop and bishop. Um, he takes a bus. He told it. There's what's called the almoner. So you think of Catholic alms.
Yeah.
So the almoner is this person who gives away the money that the Pope directs him to, and that's kind of his job. And he told the almoner when he first came into office, I want you to throw away your desk. I don't want you at your desk at all. I want you out in the community. I want you, there kind of being present wherever I ask you to be, kind of directing Vatican funds and really making a difference in the world. And I think that's a wonderful model for ministry. I mean, I'm sitting here at my desk. Uh, Nevertheless, there is have to be some time for study, but I find that the more that I'm away from my desk, I find that the better things happen. Again, you're embracing risk, you're putting yourself out there, you're at least making yourself available to other people. And yes, there are conversations that I can't get out of, and I wish I wasn't a part of, but I'll take those over the little beautiful moments that come when a neighbor stops by with their dog. I mean, right now here's the question I got right now. So, we try to think of metrics here at church, and we all think about Sunday morning attendance as a big metric, and how many people are online, and how many people are engaging with. We have a new metric here. How many dogs did you meet this week? Because if you were out in the community, walking around wherever you are in your neighborhood, you're going to meet people with dogs, and you're going to how many dogs did you meet? And there's this elderly man and his dog, and it's Bart and Buddy, and I don't know which one's Bart and which one's Buddy, so I just address both of them all the time, and they both respond to me. And I think that's just another way of just how are we out and how are we present in the community.
That's beautiful, really. I mean, come on, instead of measuring your butts in the seats,
Yeah.
um, how many dogs did you
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, because most people enjoy dogs. I mean, sure, not everybody.
Oh yeah, sure. There are some people, right? I mean,
But,
that's understandable. Yeah.
I like that. That's a really interesting metric. I I love your creativity, in your ministry. So do you think you have another book in you?
I think I do. I think I do. Really thought about writing a prequel. That's what I'm working on right now. There's two books I'm working on right now. So a prequel to this book, because it's been it's a little over a year that this book's been out, and I've had a really nice conversations with people. Interesting enough, I will tell you, the biggest interest has been from kind of like urbanists and geographers, people that think about cities and their impact. And what I found is that people in those circles have more faith in the church than the church has in itself. They view the churches as institutions that have staying power, and they like the architecture, they like its communal effect, they really like its place in the world. And so they were the first people that really responded to the book and were kind of anxious to talk to me about it, which really blew me away. I mean, I had no idea. And it's taken the church a little longer, right? But I mean, churches move at glacial pace, so they get a break.
We know this, yes.
But in the conversations, a lot of people have asked really kind of basic questions, and I say that not in a with any value judgment, just they've asked really basic questions such as, how do I get on a group bike ride? And I'm like, okay, interesting. I don't know your particular context. I can't tell you where to go and do it, but I thought, okay, here's a way to think about it. Or some people have asked, like, when I'm on the bus, like, I don't know how to get on the bus or how the bus system works. Another kind of basic question that people have. So I'm trying to write a prequel. Okay, this is how you do it. This is how,
Okay.
in your context, this would be a good way to do it. And some of this conversation, like, so there's a gentleman that works in North Carolina. He's a librarian, and his idea is how to link bicycles and libraries together. And his data shows that if you start a group bike ride at a library rather than at a bike shop, your participation is higher and it's more diverse already, because you're not showing up in ridiculous looking bicycle outfits you're just showing up in regular everyday wear, and people are on everyday bikes. I mean, I'm not a bike. I mean, I have no desire to ever ride the Tour de France or race a bicycle. I mean, I go about 10 miles an hour, and I'm pretty happy with that. Um, but churches can do that same thing as a library. When people just show up, it's a trusted place. It's somewhat it depends on your context. And the same thing about riding a bus. So I had a conversation with First Baptist Indianapolis a couple weeks ago. Great church, and we were talking about the bus rapid transit line that's there in the city. It's not near the church, but I threw out to them, could you at least maybe on a Saturday or a Sunday, even after church, a group of people go from church to a bus stop and ride the bus rapid transit line, and then get out, go have lunch, and then ride it back.
Mm.
Just for a little experience. Or maybe that's where you have at least it's the people can learn how to ride, how a bus works. You can familiarize yourself with it, and maybe and accompany it with food. You're probably going to have a better chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because Baptists and food, and that's how we roll. But
Yeah. Well, and how we roll. Nice pun. Thanks. Yeah.
thanks for the-
Yeah.
no, I think that's a great idea, a great challenge to go. I mean, I know Indianapolis just because I'm originally from Indiana, and I worked in Indianapolis for 6 years. But I think that's a really great challenge, is to go and do something like that and see how it changes your view of this place where you minister, where you serve, and see the opportunities that presents. I mean, yeah, why not?
As we're talking, I realize, I think that you're asking me how long it took me earlier. I said about 6 months. I think it was just a constant experience of being out of my comfort zone.
Mm,
I mean, I'm comfortable at my desk right here. I'm comfortable, in my role as pastor and what I do in those situations. But get me out of those roles, or get me out of those places and spaces, and I am uncomfortable with it. And just that constant uncomfortableness exposes you to different ideas, different people, and makes you think things differently. And I think if churches can get in some uncomfortable places or out of their comfort zones, they're going to find that God is just as active outside the church as God is inside,
right,
maybe more so. Yeah.
right. No,
Yeah.
I think it's great. So
Mhm.
again, I'm going to recommend for people who haven't read the book, read it.
Yeah. And
And
it's on sale, right? It's $12.79 at Judson.
woo, at
Yeah, I think it's
judsonpress.com.
yeah.
Um, and really, it's a quick read.
Yeah,
And
but look at this. I mean, we're talking, maybe a quarter inch. It's
yeah,
you
yeah,
can fit it in your back pocket. Yeah.
exactly. And really, it is. I enjoyed it. Um, so as we kind of wrap this up, the joy question, which is my favorite question, other than my intro, where I get to be, I'm Meg. That's just how I introduce myself to the entire world now. Hi, I'm Meg. Anyway, so the joy question. Think about all you do: kids, pastors, bike, all of it. And what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? I mean, okay, yeah. I mean, I'm a people. I'm an introvert that lives in an extroverted world sometimes. Even though I think introverts are more than 50% of the population. But I really do love people, and I love being in a relationship with people, and I love helping people, get from A to B, wherever that journey is. And I just, right now in my life, I feel like I'm in a place where, because of a lot of things that are happening in my personal life and kind of work life and stuff, um, I love, what brings me joy is just being able to, at the end of the day, know that I'm surrounded by a group of people that, we love each other, that we have each other's back, that we've been through some trials and tribulations and all those kinds of things, and yet we're still together. And that's a really joyous feeling. And a lot of that happens because we walk together, we ride our bikes together, we go to baseball games together, we bury parents together and all those things. So that it brings me joy just to be in those spaces. Yeah.
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 That's a great answer. That's a
Oh,
great
thanks. Wow. Yeah, yeah.
no, I mean, there's not been a bad in 39 episodes, there's not been a bad answer.
Yeah.
But, no, but I think I think so it just shows your heart, I think is what it does. So, um, not that anybody came for my opinion, but, I'm giving it anyway.
Well, I think they will come for your opinion, right? I mean, this is your
So,
show, right? Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
So, again, thank you so much, to Reverend Travis Norvell and all of the work that you do. Thanks to ABHMS for letting me ramble, um, because it brings me joy and it means I get to meet and spend time with some incredibly gifted and talented people. If you want to watch this again, it's going to be available at YouTube. And if you want to just listen to us ramble, because we're interesting people, we are interesting people. You can listen to us on Spotify, on iTunes, and you just look up, the title of the show, Ministry Mondays with Meg. I'm Meg. And people can catch us here Mondays at 11-ish. Um, and yeah, so Travis, thanks so much. Anything else you want to throw out there for the good of the
Oh, yeah.
listening audience?
I would just say, well, first of all, right? Thanks, Meg, and
Mhm.
I appreciate your joy, and I appreciate your curiosity and willing to put yourself out there. On Mondays. That's a big deal, and I appreciate it. I like the work you're doing. So, not that anybody came for my opinion, but I want to give you two thumbs up.
Right.
And,
Oh, thanks.
and
Appreciate
thanks for ABHMS for creating space to do things like this.
that.
I feel great about that. You know, any- uh, anything I'd throw out. Hey, this summer. Don't worry about if you try to walk, bike, or take public transit. Just have fun. That's the only thing I ask people. Do what brings you joy. And I find that when you're on a bicycle, there's my wife. I'll share this last story. So my wife and I have a challenge. Every time that we're out, we try to find somebody riding a bike with a frown on their face. And we've in 10 years of riding bikes together as a couple. I mean, we've been married longer than that. We've only been riding bikes together for that long, but we've only found once that we found someone with a really frown on their face, and we think this is what we surmise that they just really had to go to the bathroom really bad, and they were trying to hopefully find something quick. So that's what we think happened. So when you're on a bike, it does take you back to childhood, and you feel like a kid and you just feel like it just feels good. So I invite you just to go have some fun and be a kid again this summer sometime.
There you have it, folks.
Yeah.
We're always trying to find ways to feel younger. Go ride a bike like a kid again. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.